Hello! Welcome. Season 2? Super Pros Bros. I'm player 1, Ike. And with me, as always, is...
Player 2, Eli. And, bro mama, you know this podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
What? I did not, Brosiah. Are those the same places they could
Like,
comment
share?
and subscribe?
Oh, it sure is.
Well, that's cool. You know what else is cool?
What else is cool?
Having a head cold. I tell ya. Top tier.
I was gonna go for the fucking, Outcast shout and say ice cold. I would have been
Eh.
closer than I thought.
Yeah, I hope you're feeling better than I am because I've got this lingering head cold that I've had for over a week now, including when I had to move into my newest digs that I currently am sitting around in, sipping a cup of Joe in, talking to you in, living in. I'm stuck.
Well, I am. Notably because I don't have a head cold.
Nice.
Big fan, but no. Otherwise, things have been okay for me. I spent a week stag while Artemis was out of town. I don't get to say it that often.
No, it was just like for whatever reason, I was just like, Zeused it up.
No.
Stag.
No, I didn't go fuck everyone and everything I could lay eyes onto.
Wise choice. I hear that doesn't look good in the optics these days.
Yeah, often results in splitting headaches. Yeah. No, so spent a week here. It was a little weird, admittedly, living alone because I haven't done that in years.
Did you have that single man moment of where how do food?
No, that's not an issue because, like, most of the time make stuff for myself anyways. Like that's not uncommon. So I'm not like inept and incapable. It's not fancy, but it's like I can cook something.
It do good.
Yeah, like pasta, no problem. We can make this work.
How
like
do
make
mac
me a
cheese?
souffle, Eli. I'd like,
Yeah.
oh fuck, that ain't happening. Yeah. Otherwise, things have been pretty quiet, pretty tame. I haven't had a whole lot of super crazy adventures. Nah, it's just kind of business as usual. What about you? Outside of your head cold?
Yeah, head cold that I got. What's today? The 12th. So I've had it since like the 2nd of February, I think. I've had it for like a hot second. It's kind of a shitter.
Fun.
Like I took 2 days off work the week prior to this last week, and then pushed back my move-in date. I was supposed to move on Saturday the 4th. There was some chicanery that was afoot, so went to the 5th. Had two of my friends in Bradley Schlesinger and Dan Silver help me, and holy crap, that was amazing. They were super dope. We started. I had not moved a damn thing,
Yeah.
and we started at like 1ish, and I had everything from my old apartment into my new apartment by like 5:30. And I don't travel light, folks. I have 2 monitors that are borderline TVs. I've got 2 desks. I've got a bed, a queen size bed with a stand, and we were moved from one side. I mean, it wasn't like we weren't moving ridiculously far. It was 4 miles, but in LA that might as well be 30 minutes. So moving like 4 miles in a moving van. And when I say it was out of my place into my new place, I mean literally everything was upstairs in my apartment bedroom. If it wasn't, kitchen supplies, in which case it was sitting in the kitchen. Be put away. They weren't like put away where they belong, but like
It was
still in
all
like a 4-hour window.
assorted correctly.
Huh?
It's like it was assorted mostly correctly.
Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't like way in the wrong place. I wasn't going in the bathroom and finding like my like lampshade or
My
something.
blender.
Yeah. Hey, isn't that where you keep your blender? You gotta
No, that's where
fucking.
you keep the toast.
You gotta mix that shit up.
We're gonna move on now.
So yeah, but mad props to my boys for making that happen right quick. It was, it felt like a montage video. It happened so quickly. I was like, this is fucking amazing. Um, but moved in, had this head cold just like continuing to like linger. The tip of my tongue now tastes salt a lot. I don't know if that's worrisome or not, but it's a thing. And yeah. Oh, before we move on, I forget. Sorry, folks out there who were paying attention and there just wasn't a second episode in January. I'm an idiot and just like somehow completely escaped my mind to upload it. So yeah, this is coming to you later than initially anticipated, but my bad.
We appreciate your deference.
Yeah. What's going on? That was like pretty much it. I'm walking to my car in the mornings, which is weird. Which is like, I'll come back to that way later of like why my song rec of the day is my song rec of the day. I think there's some interplay there. Um, but yeah, is that it? I think the last time we were talking was like 2 weeks ago, basically. Is that right? Ish.
Ish.
I think that's pretty much all that's happened. Moved. Oh yeah, my ex landlord continue to fuck me on my way out the door. It was amazing. Did I tell you about like the way he like set up the thing, or like how he like kind of
No.
like continued to fuck? Like, okay, so I'm moving out of my place, and not like the day of, like before. I was like, hey, can I move on my lease early? What does that entail? He goes, well, you know, obviously you pay for cleaning because you're moving out. Like that's totally fine. And he's like, and you're gonna have to pay for the difference between the person who moves in. So if they move in like right when you move out, you won't owe anything. I'm like sick.
Okay.
Later time comes and he goes, okay, so when you're moving out, you're gonna have to pay for a new mattress. I'm like, why am I paying for a new mattress? He's like, well, the last one that you didn't use because the place was listed as furnished had to be put outside. I'm like, okay, well, we have a garage, so that's not true, but sure. And he's just like, and it rained, so it got messed up, so we had to throw it away. So you have to buy a new mattress. I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I buying a new mattress?
That's
Like, and I asked him, I was like, okay, if I had moved out when my lease was up, what I had to pay for the mattress, like, was that just like an expense that I didn't know I had to owe, basically? He's like, oh no. It's like, okay, so it's punitive. There is a punishment for moving out early. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's just a mattress. I'm getting out from under this shitty, douchey, annoying, cloying landlord to something that's pretty chill, and my rent is like $400 less. Okay, take the L, whatever.
yeah.
Then moving on, he goes, okay, I found somebody new. I'm like, cool, awesome. He goes, I'll show him the place sometime. What I didn't know is that he was going to not tell us when he was showing the place, and that he was going to be in our living quarters without our presence or knowledge of his presence. So my room ended up getting shown without my like I prepped for it because I knew he was going to be showing it, but he didn't tell us when or who he showed it to. So we had like random people going in amongst our stuff, and I have some.
They
Not
generally need to give you 24 hours notice for that kind of shit.
Yeah, he
Like,
gave us none of that.
It's almost always in every lease agreement.
Yeah.
Like it's a very boilerplate
Uh huh.
kind of thing.
Yep.
The fuck?
Uh huh. Oh yeah, no. Like the other day, I came home. This is like either after I started the process of getting ready to like move out, or which was basically just like figuring out where I was gonna park and shit like that. I actually, to give earlier credit to my friends who moved, I literally hadn't started packing anything to be moved. I literally went from like living in it one day to moved in 4 hours, like including like packing,
Yeah.
putting stuff in boxes, putting stuff in cars. Anyway, so yeah, before all that's happening, I come home one day and there's just keys that I don't recognize that I know aren't my roommates just in our kitchen. I'm like, message him. I was like, "Did you leave your keys here?" He goes, "Oh yeah." It's like, you didn't tell us you were coming into the apartment. He's just like popped in and just left his keys there. Like, what the fuck? I'm
Hello.
like having like small panic attack. I'm like, okay, like glad I'm moving out. This shit's whack. So not only does that happen, he looks for somebody to fill the spot. Cool. Doesn't tell me that he's charging me to do so. So when he finds a new person, he goes, yeah, so they're gonna be like, and he's like, each time he's showing me this new, like, this is what's gonna be taken out of your like, um, of your security deposit, which fine, you know, that's better than like charging me, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, it's effectively the same thing. It just makes it easier. But he's like, oh yeah, and $200, or it was initially it was $150 to find a new tenant. I'm like, and it literally when he told me that, he goes, yeah, so like this is being, you know, this is another expense when it, like he's just like retelling me out of nowhere, and he goes, you know, $75 for the mattress, which I'm like, okay, I'm fine taking that L, and then he goes $150 to show the place, which in in like a bracket next to it, he goes, which is a steal, which I'm like, motherfucker, I didn't ask you to. Like, I'm glad that you're going to, but that wasn't requisite. Like, you could just leave that on me. I would have done it and saved myself $150. Later, like, this last week, when he's telling me all the stuff that's being taken out because I was just double checking, he goes $200 for showing the place. Now it goes leveled up to showing the place. I'm like, again, didn't ask you to do that. Also, wasn't it 150? He goes, sorry, I misspoke earlier. It was supposed to be 200. Like, what the
What?
fuck?
Why is it,
You just
why is it
continue
charging
to
the
add.
tenant to show the plate? What the fuck?
It's, you remember that, like, so there's this robot chicken thing from Star Wars where Rando Calrissian is, or Lando, sorry, I keep using that as like a stand for somebody I don't know. Lando Calrissian is like dealing with Darth Vader, and Darth Vader goes, I've changed the terms of our agreement, pray that I don't alter them any further. It was like that, but like, so in the skit, every time Lando like talks to Vader, Vader makes it a worse and worse deal for Lando. So the last time Lando's about to say something, Lando just goes, you know what? Actually, I'm okay with this because it's like he doesn't want it to get worse. I should have just stopped messaging my now ex-landlord because every time I interacted with him, I lost money. So stupid.
Oh, that seems almost actionable, but not worth it.
I mean, so the people upstairs, because this is a duplex, the people upstairs are literally, as I'm moving out, we're like, hey, we're making a class action lawsuit against him for blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. And they're like, do you want to be in on it? I was like, they're like, can we have your number? I was like, give me your number. I will contact you as soon as he pays me. I'm in. Like, like, fuck this guy, but also I need to get my bag first because I'm broke as hell. So I'm just, now he like zelled me money. I'm like, cool, he can't take this back, right? My friend who knows banking, he's like, no, he can't take it back. I'm like, message him. I was like, what do you need to know? It's like ready to drop some dirt. This guy fucking sucks. I hope they destroy him. Speaking of destroy, what's the topic de agenda today?
So we're going to talk about the details. So there's kind of something that I've always harped on a bit, and it's lazy writing, and like where things kind of feel forced, hackneyed, and just in general they don't feel good. It doesn't feel
Not
good. It
well
doesn't read
thought
well.
out.
Yeah, it feels, and it's really frustrating too when you take 2 seconds, look at it, and go, I can make this so much better.
Yeah.
And it can be so much better with just what feels like almost very little input.
Or even if not better, point out that it's a problem and needs to be addressed. Very obviously.
Yes. And whether this is a lack of detail to flesh things out, or just a lack of effort, seeming lack of effort to make things coherent. And on the flip side, places where extra effort and extra detail has been added and used well, and it made things stand out. Because there's a lot of things that we've talked about, like where you hit that middle ground, where it's like,
That's fine.
it's fine. But then there's things where it's like, they go the extra mile, and you can tell it goes the extra mile, and you feel it.
So, do we want to go good, bad, good? Just go bad, just go good, just go good.
We'll start bad.
So
We'll
bad.
start with the places where it sucks. Um, and
First on the docket.
first on the shopping block, the thing I love to always kick when it's down, because it deserves it. Borderlands 3's writing sucks. Its writing is garbage, and is so easily fixed. Which is a shame, because the game's not terrible. Its navigation's a bit wonky, with it being like the tiering on maps, but that's completely besides the point. In Borderlands 2, it did a really good job making you feel like the main character. Like, the game felt like it kind of warped around you. Jack hated you. You know, like, you were the good guy, he was the bad guy, and was very clear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Borderlands 3, you feel like an extra. The plot is all between the Calypso twins and the other sirens who work with you. But you are kind of an extra. You're just some random no-name mercenary. Like, none of their ire is really directed towards you. None of the plot points are hinged around you. Nothing.
Yeah.
You're just sort of along for the ride. And it feels bad. Especially when you consider that one of the characters is a fucking siren. And somehow you are omitted from the list of sirens they want to, like, vampire away. And in the second game, that is a question mark, where it's like Jack's obsession with sirens and using them as, like, basically engines. And there is a fucking bit of
batteries.
Yeah, they're like using them like a living battery. And there is actually a fucking bit of dialogue where a character diverts him away from using the playable siren character as a battery source. Like, they make a point to add that detail.
Yep.
The Borderlands series doesn't fucking do any of that shit. It just throws things out there. It doesn't rationalize its action. It doesn't address the player. It is nothing. And it feels so bad and lifeless as a result.
Yep. You're just Indiana Jones the whole way through.
Yeah, with less fucking pizzazz and swagger.
Less pizzazz, swagger, and whips.
Yeah.
And you don't have that John Williams score to send it.
Yeah, you really do. Like, it's just... And they just... The one that galls me most is for 2 games, they have a character... Like... Lilith's whole gimmick is teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
But she gets trapped in the beginning and doesn't just fucking teleport away.
Yeah.
Like, she even teleports in the fight. She doesn't just piss off.
Yeah.
Like... Why doesn't she just leave? Like...
Could just dip.
And all they have to do is write some fucking MacGuffin that, like, turns off siren powers in a, 50-foot radius or some shit. They put some kind of cage down. There's so many... It's fucking Borderlands. There's so many bullshit, fantastical, nonsense answers you could just throw at a wall.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, good enough. Like, I'm not putting a high bar here.
Yeah, it's not... They didn't have to, like, reinvent the wheel. They just needed,
listen,
like, a couple lines of well-placed, well-written dialogue.
Yeah, you don't even need well-written dialogue. You just need some fucking rationale I can shrug and go, yeah, fuck it, good enough. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
They just don't do it. So, as an audience, I'm just sitting here going,
The
you
fuck?
fucking kidding?
Fuck?
Yeah, just, Jesus. Like, it just so undercut the game and just made it so hard for me to be involved and care. I love that franchise. It just sucked.
I seem to be out of fucks to give. What? Why? But I want to give more fucks, but
Yeah.
I don't. Where is?
I can't invest myself in something so dumb. Anyway, before I keep rambling, what do you got a beef with?
Beef. Nay, I have zebra steaks with Madagascar. Madagascar's 2005 animated feature had, like especially for its time, great animation, great voices. And there were plenty of, like, fun jokes, especially in the first act. But then, like, the second and third act just kind of trundle down a very slight hill drunkenly. It just kind of, like, careens aimlessly and not fast to make it like if it was fast, at least something's happening, but like nothing's really going on. The premise of the movie is that animals decide they want to leave the zoo, they escape the zoo. They end up going to Madagascar. They realize they like the zoo and want to come back. But like they have like a side arc while in Madagascar, which is the lion who's the main character is friends with three herbivores and wants to end up eating one of them, gets shunned. And it's basically like three different bad stories, especially considering one of them is and isn't really fixed, because the fix to oh yeah, one of our friends is a
carnivore
is we feed him fish. He can't eat other animals, but fish is okay. It's like, the fuck? If all these animals are talking, why is it just okay to kill fish? Also, like, I understand it's a difficult problem to solve. We want characters to be friends and create a problem. Just create a different problem. Like, because you don't have a fix for this. There's no, like, he became a vegetarian. He's eating fish at the end.
That lion is gonna lion, it turns out.
Yeah. It's like, just don't have the problem. It's just like, I feel like they needed, the lazy writing was, okay, we know how the movie starts, and they're like, whoops, and they just don't, and then they accidentally found a third act, but like needed filler for the second, and then they came up with this one that just doesn't have good loop closing at all. So it's just like, maybe find a different problem. Like, or just don't have story to it. You are an animated derpy comedy with a million characters. Like, I don't know. It's going to be a half-ass story. Like, anyway, just find one that doesn't have a glaring problem of where, we can't have him eat our friends, so let's eat other people. Like,
listen, as long as it's not people I know.
Yeah, exactly. This is how racism starts.
As long as it's one of them.
Exactly. It's not one of us, it's one of them. It's like we're like backdooring our way into what's that, like, I think it's like a hand-drawn kids book or something like that. It's like they came for the otters, they came for the fish, I said nothing, and then they came for me and there was no one to speak. So there's this like version of
dark.
Well, so there's a poem. I don't know why. Sorry for accidentally dovetailing into Serious Town. So there's this poem that's like, hold on.
I know what poem you're talking about, actually.
They first came. First they came is what it's called. First they came for the socialists, I did not speak because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak. Martin Niemöller. And there's this book that's based on it, but it's with animals, and like they come around for the horses, and everybody's like, "Well, they just want the horses, not us." And rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And then there's like one person left who goes, shit, and just like stands the book. It's like, yeah, gotta talk up. It's like, it's fine. They're just eating fish. It's like, what happens? Also, it's not like they were fishing for the fish. Not that that would be better. They just like kind of had it. And it's like, what happens when you run out of fish? Or, like, I don't know. Like, none of you guys are swimmers, so you're just like hoping they're always gonna be by the shore. It's like, or what happens if he gets tired of fish? It's like, we have a problem.
What if he just wants a midnight snack?
Yeah.
Because you looking awful thick.
Yeah. Run, Chris Rock's zebra character, run.
Getting out of Animatedville. I've got some beef with Karate Kid. Well, and not just the kind of old 80s hackneyed writing, or the quote-unquote martial arts that are being taught.
Although we'll get to that in a second, probably by accident.
Yeah, I'll probably slip down. I'll probably fall over. Let's talk about the end tournament.
Everybody goes to the tournament arc.
Everyone, the tournament arc. You're welcome, Gigok. Anyway, first things first. They set the rule, like, no excessive contact, no kicks to the head. And first, like, I don't really want to believe there's people so petty that they'd be like, hey, kid, maim that child for me. And listen, I realize that there are some shitty people on the planet, but, like, Jesus Christ. We're ordering 14-year-olds to try and, like, break a kid's leg. What the fuck? We're not in the mob.
Not with that attitude.
I guess. But, like, good God. So, okay. Let's pretend that evil McFuckface over there is actually a real person. And for some reason, kids are totally chill with just, like, maiming other human beings. Fine. Smashes... I forget the main character's name.
Danielson?
Yeah, Daniel, thank you. Just smashes Daniel in the fucking thigh. And, like, cracks a bone. So, which, also, Jesus Christ, if he just cracked the kid's femur, goddamn. That kid needs a hospital.
Check that kid for roids.
Not massage therapy.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They do
the clap fucking hand movement. Like,
yeah.
At best, that's a nice massage. Like,
yeah.
Your hands aren't fucking magic, Mr. Miyagi.
You're
anyway,
not a wizard.
All right. So we've set the precedent that excessive contact gets you fucking kicked out.
Yeah.
Which it does for point sparring, which is what they were doing. But then round fucking 2 comes there. Also, they probably wouldn't let him compete, by the way, if he's, got like a cracked fucking leg.
Yeah.
Because liability being what it is, they're not just gonna let you keep fighting. Anyway, moving on. He fucking boots a guy in the head, which, A, they said was illegal on its own, but 2, he drops that fucker.
Yeah.
Like, he gives that kid a concussion. So he breaks 2 rules. It is venerated. No, he should also be kicked out. Like, he should be fucking kicked to the curb, not given a fucking trophy. Like, it's outrageous. And that is... I have to do it. Crane kicks are the dumbest thing. They're so stupid. No one uses them. They're retarded. You can't kick someone hard enough to give them a concussion with a crane kick. It is entirely a drill meant to emphasize balance and to teach kids balance. That is its entire purpose. You never use it. There's a reason you never see it in, like, a fucking MMA fight. Because it's stupid. Oh, it's so dumb. You're just asking to get tripped. You're on one fucking foot voluntarily. You're retarded. Ugh.
Feel better?
Crane kicks are garbage. Just do a round kick, a push kick, a side kick even, for fuck's sake. Don't do a snap kick. Snap kicks are worthless. God forbid you catch someone's elbow with your foot, your toes explode. Actually, fuck, you could even hit them. You hit their chin, their teeth might hurt. So do your feet. Like, you're doing an equal amount of damage to yourself. You don't want to kick with your toes. Your toes explode. Anyway, there's the really quick digestible version of Eli hates choreography. Yeah. Also, there could be no defense. I can walk backwards. What, are you gonna fucking hop after me?
And by just this Michael Jackson move, I have defeated you.
Yeah, if I moonwalk away, you just stand there looking like a fucking scarecrow.
Shit! He's cut the counter.
Shimon.
Shimon. Ah!
Yeah.
He's undefeatable.
Yeah, you just stand in the middle looking like a fucking scarecrow and a jackass. God, Jesus, that irks me. Anyways, moving on before I keep going, because I will keep going, but I need to stop.
The last one we have where it's just like, guys, write better, or at least don't write the fix to your big problem in your own movie. So A Quiet Place is a well-shot, well-acted, well-directed, except for this one thing, thought-out movie. In so many directions, this movie works. However, the premise of A Quiet Place is you have monsters that hear sound. And like they're effectively like hyper T-Rexes from Jurassic Park. They just, in an ocular direction, they use sound as like a trigger, and that's how they chase you down, kill you, and eat you. Makes sense. Cool idea. and love the
Very,
presentation of the movie.
it's a
The
cool
idea,
monster, is very threatening, very kind of omnipresent.
yeah, using sound as the trigger, so it plays like so it uses the visual medium and the sound medium in two almost different quadrants is so cool. Love it. Great idea. However, the problem the characters are faced with is you can't make noise, otherwise the monsters find you. Got it. Makes sense. And they realize that, hey, if we go to a waterfall, the waterfall sound will muffle us and we can just talk normally, we can shout, we can scream, and they won't hear us, so we can just, have a human moment there. Makes sense. Why don't we live there?
To play devil's advocate a little bit, is because you do not have a house there.
Sure.
That being
However,
said, lake houses exist.
lake houses exist. You can build cabins. Like, get your shit together. Like, if they were trying to build a house there while this movie's happening, I'm here for it. I get why it's not done yet, but we haven't started doing that yet.
Yeah,
The
especially
other,
since they mentioned that it's like day 400 or something.
yeah, they've been there a minute. The other thing is they are staying in like a barn or converted barn thingy, and they have a basement where they can go to talk because it's below earth and the way sound travel works. I don't know enough to know if this is correct or not.
It just kills enough sound.
It suppresses enough sound. Neat. Live down there. Like, why are we constantly in the main barn where we can't make noise when we could just be downstairs? Why? It's just like, come on. I'm sorry. Like, if you're going to make things that are just like, oh yeah, just do this all the time, like, why? Like, all they have to do is include lines of, man, I wish this place was big enough. I wish it didn't have asbestos. Come up with a reason why they can't be there. Something. Give me a little, just one line. It has to just be one line. Like I was saying earlier, all you got to do, just a line of shitty dialogue where it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is why. Just do that. That's all you got to do, and I'm here for it. But the fact that you have these two, like, completely great answers.
Pretty easy solutions that fix a lot of the problems we run into in the film.
Yeah. Or just don't have them in the movie. I think it's really cool that they thought of it, but if you're going to think of it, you also have to think of, like, the kind of, like, flip reverse of what this, of why not. And it's, it's too cold. We tried moving stuff up here. Show a lot of wood at the bottom. Be like, we tried building a house here once. It just didn't work. Like, and the kid's gonna ask. The 6-year-old boy who likes making noise is gonna ask, hey, why don't we just live here where I can have a conversation with you and not use sign language? Like, this is gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
Why am I not here where I can play with my rocket toy? Come on. Guys, you can... Look, screenwriting's hard. I'm not saying this would necessarily have been easy, but you gotta troubleshoot this and figure out the problems to the most obvious, hand raises of an 8-year-old in the audience.
Yeah. Do better.
Yeah.
That seems kind of mean.
Yeah, shit's hard. We're not taking away from the difficulty of that, but you got it. Come on, these gripes are so surface level. We're not getting deep in the weeds here. You're just for the Karate Kid.
I'm not bitching about alien anatomy or why its face splits open when it's hit with sound, or why no one has tried just over-simulating them with sound at this point since we're 400 days in.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll let that go. Yeah. Whatever.
This is the equivalent of that meme where it's boss asks question, 3 guys say something, the last guy says something, gets thrown out the window. It's is that what happened? Did somebody went, why don't they just live in the waterfall? And they're like, get out. Don't even take a fucking bagel. You're like, okay. Why? Before we move on to the Happy Towns, there is when doing research for this episode, kept running into people talking about, when it came to plot holes, about the Titanic door thing, of why didn't Jack just get on the door next to Rose? There's clearly enough room. Okay, so that is where we're drawing the kind of middle ground of I think we're okay with you saying that, but this is not what this is about. Why this is why we're not getting this pedantic. It's because you didn't think of that in the moment. And we also don't know definitively, and that's the problem with a lot of these, is definitively these are all holes that are existent and have been like set up to not be holes in their universe.
There's absolutely pretense for why they shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas with the door, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that big.
Maybe one thought about it.
Yeah, they were both freezing. They weren't thinking about it. You know, he was worried about her, so he didn't want to risk it because he loved her that much. Whatever.
Maybe his body was in shock and his muscles stopped working, so he couldn't fucking drag himself onto a boat because suddenly dumping into an ice bath does dumb things to your body.
Yeah. There's plenty of plausible reasons. Would I have tried if I were Jack? Hell yeah. Bitch, give me a second. I need to get on this board. I'm a little wet. Like, I would have tried for it.
It's cold in here.
Yeah. Switch seas? Like, something. But, you know, that one, there's nothing in the universe saying that like, they didn't lay on the board early and go, we could both fit here if we were in icy
they don't,
waters.
like, stack against the door and go, bigger than both of us. Like,
yeah, there's no setup for why this doesn't work. We just assume via our own personal experiences it should and would work. Would it? Maybe, probably even, but we don't know that for sure it would. So that's why this one is being noticeably left behind. What isn't being left behind and what we are celebrating is...
I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And
why don't you marry it?
Listen, that was an option. And
between you and me, if I was single.
Exactly. And one of the things that Brooklyn Nine-Nine does really well, besides just having good writing and like good comedy writing and chemistry and all that shit, is they do a lot of good attention to detail, and like their setup is incredible. Like, I didn't realize, and I've seen the show multiple times because it's just that good. It's one of my forever shows that I will always watch it, and I will never feel bad about rewatching it. Like that and Futurama and Avatar. Maybe Gravity Falls. It's about it. It's a pretty small list of shows that I could just watch ad infinitum and not be sad. But one of the things they do, and I'd never caught it, is they set up an episode a season and a half in advance. Because like there is an episode where Holt brings on the best detective he's ever worked with, a guy named Dillman. And like there's a random episode where Jake like talks about himself and Amy as his two best detectives. He's like, you're like the two smartest detectives he knows. He's like, you're not them. And he names two other people that are not in the show. You have never encountered them. They're just two random names that Holt pulls out of a hat, basically. But he sets up the episode where he calls in Dillman. Like, and they never would have had to do that. They could have just left it be weird call-outs to just kind of put Jake in his place and have him be sad because he's not the smartest detective that Holt knows.
Yeah.
Like,
that would play.
Yeah, I think that would play just fine. And they could have just brought in Dillman later without setting him up, just to have Jake be like, wait, I'm not the smartest detective, you know. And just, constantly undermine the ego because that's kind of their whole shtick.
Yeah.
Like, either one works. The fact they're willing to do both, exceptional. And how they do so many callbacks to their own things is super good. And they set so many things up so when they subvert the expectation, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, their writing is so good. And that's also not talking about the cold opens, which ultimately mean nothing, but are just phenomenal. Like, the show doesn't need the cold opens, but I'm so fucking glad it has them. Like, it has so much extra done for it, and so much good attention to detail. The show is just fucking great. Anyway, what do you got for a wonderful bit of attention to detail?
It's really small. I mean, it's in everything he does. So Wes Anderson's one of my favorite directors of all time. Really love his work. It's very beautiful. But the thing I want to talk about specifically is in the Grand Budapest Hotel. It starts off and it does it's doing, if I remember correctly, it's doing a movie within it's doing a story within an interview within an interview within a movie or something like that. Okay. So initially it starts off in current times, guy is going back to talk to somebody else. It's in one video format. Like the So there's different. Oh, let me look them up. Uh, Sorry, it's not video format. It's aspect ratios. So the one you're probably used to is 16 by 9 is most TVs. So it's 16 wide by 9 or 16 wide by 9 tall, basically, is the aspect ratio. So, for instance, if it was like inches, you'd have like a 32 by 18 screen or something like that, which is relatively common. Not necessarily that exactly. Like 40 by 32, I think is kind of close as well. Um, but so that's the kind of aspect ratio we're talking about here, is just like the kind of the size of your screen. And usually 16 by 9, the aspect ratio will fill your screen. But then if you go to like cinemas or something like that, you'll see kind of almost like a 2-to-1 aspect ratio, or like a 185 by 1 will be the aspect ratio. So there'll be like some black bar at the top and at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a 185 by 1 or a 2-to-1 ratio. And so it goes, each time it changes who the effective narrator is and who the story is, like whose perspective the story is being told through. It changes aspect ratio because it's changing time period. And so what Wes did was he used the aspect ratio of the time period for each one, which is why one of them is set up where the black bars are on the side, because it would have been like shot with TV in mind, and that's the way it fit old TVs, because old TVs were squares, not rectangles.
Yeah.
And that's why there's like black bars on the side, not because it was made that way, but because it was made with the assumed aspect ratio of being a television and fitting a square.
Yeah.
So he does that per each one, and it doesn't do anything consciously, I think, to the film, but I think one of the things it does subconsciously is you know what time period you're looking at, and you know who's telling the story and who the effective narrator or perspective character is. Which isn't a big deal, but it's attention to detail that's really, really cool and allows there to be a fun little like offside fact and just like have it play with your brain a little bit. And I think it does change the way that we as viewers appreciate and internalize the movie on a very like subconscious, like small percentage scale. But I think it makes a difference, and it's really cool. What do you have next?
Something I'm surprised I haven't talked about more on this is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I mean, it's got brothers in the name.
It's just two brothers.
In a van?
So, one of the things that the show does incredibly well, other than not overstaying its welcome, which is something I think that most anime sucks at.
Even though it did like 5 seasons. 4 seasons?
I mean, so it's 63 episodes? So, 3-ish, depending if you're looking at, 13 episode seasons versus 26 episode seasons. What I mean, it's like, let's say 3 or 4.
64 episodes, so that must have been 4 seasons at 21 episodes apiece.
Sure. That would be 3 and slight change, by the way.
That's
64,
really bad
not
math.
84.
Yeah, I just did horrible math. How many seasons? Hold on, I'm looking how many seasons there are.
Anyway, but even as long as it does not overstay its welcome. Like,
Agreed.
it has a very coherent story. It has very clear introductions, and it ties up story threads super, super well. But one of the things that it does insanely well is it teases its bigger story way earlier than you think. Like, it doesn't show all... Like, it saves a lot for, like, grand reveal and shit, but it does tease a lot of what's going to happen, as well as it gives you these weird kind of, like, story beats that you kind of ask, what do I do with this? And then later it shows why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is a random scene with Hohenheim just kind of walking around being sad, and he just, like, cuts himself and bleeds on the ground and walks away. And you kind of go, what the fuck is that about? And it is just teasing for his, like, solution to this massive problem you don't know about yet.
Yeah.
And they do plenty setting up the massive problem, like the one of the first episodes with the like kind of Easterners. Sounds weirdly racist.
I mean, it isn't. It is meant to convey this. Like they have a name, don't they?
I I can like Emperor like Ling,
Yeah,
Jing.
yeah.
The guy who always wears yellow is perpetually hungry. And despite being an emperor, is more like a homeless person in the show. Um,
Is it a mistress?
a mistress is like their modern, or like their German equivalent.
Okay.
Um, yeah, a mistress is like where, like Edward and Alfonso.
There's Ishvalan, Yingisi, Jershian, Malosian, and Amestrian. So I think he's the Yingisen or the
I believe so. That sounds
Ying-
right.
Xingese.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Okay. I don't know
Anyway,
how to
like
pronounce that.
he kind of stands around at one point and goes, "Something feels wrong,"
Mm-hmm.
and like they talk about alchemy being wrong here in Amestrius or in Amestrius.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, and you don't really get to know why for a while. It just teases it, and it does it so well. So it makes the big reveal terrific, and it makes them eventually unveiling what you've been trying to discern super satisfying. So, I think it is not getting enough props for the kind of breadcrumbs it shows off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as well as just
Great story.
yeah, great story, great characters, terrific resolution.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just great.
Makes the feels. Does it all.
Yeah.
So one of the things I have, and not to continue to harp on like weird filmic things, but I'm gonna, so deal with it.
Do it.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has a bunch of little things that are fun, like it kind of plays off comic book tropes. Like if you look in the background, I saw this today as I was gathering some data for this. There's when they're escaping the lab, they're running out and like getting away from all these like scientists, and at one point I think it's Miles Morales throws a bagel, hits somebody, and it just says in white text, all like action onomatopoeia comic booky thing, it says bagel as the guy gets like tagged with a bagel instead of like whap or bam. It's just bagel. It's like that's kind of just awesome. You gotta appreciate that. It doesn't do anything for the story, but it does everything for the aesthetic. You see the bams, the whaps, the oohs, and like it very much pays deference to like, yeah, we're making a movie that is like based on comic books. Let's have it be like a comic book. It's like that's kind of awesome. I'm gonna harp on that later, but for something else. But it's so great to pay deference, and it makes
It has a sense of style too.
it has a sense of style, but it's also one of those things like it makes a difference, even though it makes a difference to the way you feel about the movie, even though it doesn't make a difference to the story of the movie. And I think that's very important to, especially when it comes to movies, especially certain types of book, is to like world building is it doesn't have value in the kind of normal like economy of words, economy of action vibe, but it does make a difference in the way the way and like to which degree you appreciate a piece. So I think it is very relevant.
Yeah.
One of the things that this movie does that's really really cool. It doesn't have to, and it's one of those things you don't notice, but you feel. So in making animated films, unless you're watching like Akira, which is one of the only ones I know of that is animated on the ones. So, let me flex my degree and weird, huge just involvement with little tidbits. Animated films generally are animated as what is referred to on the 2s or the 3s. So on your average film, you get 24 frames per second.
Okay.
That is what most people are used to. That's why, especially for me and other people, when you watch, I think the human eye is able to see 60, but it interprets 24 better, which is why when I don't know about you guys, but when I watch one of those like brand new TVs that can like do 60 frames per second and it's going at 60 frames per second, shit looks fucking weird. It don't look right. And so you're just looking at it, you're like, why is this? Ah! But then when you watch something with 24, which has been for a very long time, it looks right. It feels correct. So most animated features do what is called doing on the ones or the twos or the threes, where they will animate every other frame. Because it doesn't really make, I mean, as you can tell by watching animation, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Case in point, when you watch anime, sometimes they're animating on like the eights effectively. They're just like holding on a static image or basically a GIF. So most American cinema or American cartoons are animated on the twos or threes, meaning 12 frames per second or 8 frames per second is what they are animating. Especially when hand drawn, I think they usually went with 8. So for this one, for the first half of the movie, while Miles Morales is trying to figure himself out, come to, being Spider-Man, all that, it's animated, I believe, on the threes. So every 8 frames is being animated. Then when he does that awesome reverse jump off the building where they flip the animation so that he looks like he's jumping up when he's jumping down towards the city and kind of embracing himself as the Spider-Man, it switches the rate and goes to being animated on the twos, which is not something you can see, but it's something you can feel. Which is, I implore you to go back and watch that movie and just watch up until and watch after and watch up until and watch after and see how it's different and see how, well, not see, but literally kind of look inward and see how you feel about the movie, because there is a noticeable difference. And it's just one of those things.
That's basically right at the end of the movie, isn't it? Or like towards the end.
Yep. Which is probably one of the other reasons they could do it, is because it's like they had to do more work. But you can feel there's like a kinetic and emotional shift that like you're not noticing, but you're feeling it.
Yeah.
And for me, at least, it made a discernible difference. It's like, oh, it's got more energy, it's got more vibes, we got more stuff going on. So not only does it make sense, but also you can just kind of like feel that change when the character goes through a change.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's so fucking dope. Sticking to the animated.
Sticking to the animated. This is less of a single movie, more of a broad sweeping thank you to Pixar. Their Easter eggs are insane. Like, the amount of almost self-promotional stuff they throw in their movies is outstanding. But on top of that, there's also other places where just clearly extra effort is put in.
I mean, even with the Easter eggs, not only does, it makes it a universe. It makes it this thing where you're always inside, and so like it gives you that like warm blanket feeling that Pixar is so often going for me at least.
Yeah.
So it's not only just like, look at our stuff, it's like you're in Pixar land now.
Yeah. It does do a good job at setting itself apart in that regard. Very, very true. On top of that, there is just extra stuff where they do a lot of the extra mile. Like the bloopers and outtakes they have on a lot of movies they are not necessary.
No.
No one would be like, this was an incomplete movie because I didn't get to see animated fucking outtakes. Yeah. Like,
by the way, that when I was a dumb kid, I was like, oh, okay, it's the takes they didn't use where the actors being funny. No, it's all artifice. It's created top to bottom, in the OG ones for fun for you.
Like, I feel like probably the best example is like the Monsters Inc. outtakes. Those are ridiculous. Like, they're just so absurd. And I mean, you have to take time to draw, to animate, to
they made more
voice.
Yeah, this is all effort. Created just for this gag. Yeah. For this like funny for you, which I think is like huge,
but they
because
fucking
like
run during credits.
Yeah.
And half the people are leaving.
Exactly. But I think that's the genius of it, because credits are unwatchable. For your average person, it's like, why am I going to spend 5+ minutes listening to a song I heard in the movie and just watch names pour down the screen? I got a car that I was paying parking for. I got dinner to make. I got work in the morning. Like, they have shit to do. So to make it, like, to effectively pay people with great animation to sit through the credits is genius.
Yeah.
It's expensive brilliance, but it is brilliance.
Yeah. And on top of that, too, is their shorts that they have for, I think, every film are outstanding. Like, and again, that is something they don't need to do as a production company.
Yeah.
No one is gonna go see fucking Toy Story and be like, wow, I'm so disappointed there was no short. Like, no one says that. No one thinks that. Ever. And it's just, I mean, this is not going into how tight the writing is in so many of their movies. I mean, there's a couple modern ones that are a bit of a stinker. Looking at you, Cars. Sorry.
Shots fired.
Cars 2 is an atrocity. Everyone can agree on this. But like, so much of the writing is super tight. The casting is super good, and so much of their attention to detail and the animation, the fidelity of their animation is incredible. Like, but yeah. Anyways, I can gush about Pixar for way longer than is necessary. What's next up on the pedestal?
So next up, we've got Edgar Wright movies. This is one of those things I was talking about when I was talking about like paying deference to the source material. In Scott Pilgrim versus the World, it is a story that's based on a video game that's based on a comic book. And since it's based on a comic book, they use a lot of, like, I believe, if I remember correctly, they use a lot of the source material for like some of like the kind of cutaways of like Ramona's backstory, but also in the fight scenes they have the onomatopoeias, the blam, the whap, the bows, of when the character hits, runs into stuff, paying to deference.
Sure.
But then you also have in other Edgar Wright movies, one of my favorites is Baby Driver, where he's walking around and they're intermixing the, if you will, the diegeticism of the music into the circumstance, where the music won't be just nobody else will be hearing it. Like, it'll be clearly the main character listening to it, because when he takes off his headphones is when the music stops.
Yeah.
When somebody changes the radio station, the song changes. And so they find a way to integrate the soundtrack into the movie. But then also, like, when he's walking around, and this is like, it doesn't do anything, but it does do something, is he's walking around singing a song when he's kind of having a moment, and a lot of the lyrics are drawn on as graffiti on the side of buildings. When he meets the love interest of the movie, he walks, I think either he or she walks past what is initially a black heart on the side of a building, and when he or she walks past it, it lights up red. But it's done so much in like the kind of background, almost out of focus, that you don't miss any. The story is not less, or is not incomplete for you not having seen it, but having seen it, you gain more. So it's just like, it's a level of added brilliance. Also, I mean, all of his movies are great. The way he does jokes. One of the best ones is Shaun of the Dead. They use the characters flipping through the channels, and they have it tell you the circumstance, but without him getting it. So you're, as the audience member, in the know of what's going on, but the main character's oblivious to it.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find the clip of it, but it's so genius. It's just kind of playing with the form. You have the cursing scene in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where he goes in and somebody just reads him the riot act, and it's just, instead of cursing and like getting an R rating, they just bleeped her out, but using a bunch of different sound effects like you would for like a video game. Again, like paying deference. It's like, it's so much little genius that makes it go a long way.
Yeah.
And just vibes in the people that are fans, and just the overall ambiance, which, again, you know, as these are fun and these are action movies, I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking of fun action movies, if you want to talk about detail and extra effort put into a movie, I can't think of anything more exaggerated than Everything Everywhere All at Once. There is so much extra stuff that you did not need to have in that film. I don't need hot dog fingers. I'm so glad they were there. I don't need raccoonie. so glad it was there. Like, there's so much extra shit that is completely tangential to the story. The movie would operate just fine without it, and it doesn't matter. I think in part that is the whole point of the movie, is it's supposed to be just crazy, in-your-face, gratuitous extraness. I don't have a better word for that.
Mm-hmm.
That it's super entertaining and compelling. And I'm just so glad they hard committed and made it as redonkulous and as ostentatious as possible.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much extra. And the writing on it is tight, too. And the way they tie things back in, like, and make it relatable is just crazy.
Yeah. There's, like, little things also that add value to that one, because there's, like... So there's a couple sequences where they go through, like... They're effectively speed dialing through the whole entire, like, universe of her character. And if you slow it down and go frame by frame, you go 24 frames per second, do, a 24th of a second at a time, they change. And one of them is the FX crew, the visual effects crew, looking at one of the shots that's in the movie right after the shot that was in the movie. So you don't notice it, but they're on this Zoom call, and so there's these, like, there is a picture of a Zoom call with a lot of the people that worked on the, like, visual effects for the movie, just, like, to the side for a frame, and then it goes back. It's like it doesn't make a difference. There's people, the team out there is feeling,
They
validated.
got their second of validation,
Yeah.
Or 24th of a second of validation.
Yeah, and it allows you to, if you want to go deep down the rabbit hole, you've got multiple seconds with 24 frames that you can slow down and go through and see what it is.
Yeah.
There's a frame or two where she's an animated character. There's a frame or two. Like, there's so many different little things, and some of it does matter, and some of it doesn't. But overall, again, it's ambiance creating... the calling back and forth and doing, like... They talk about the way the parents interact at the beginning of the movie about what it means.
Mm-hmm.
When they say, when Grandpa says this, when Grandpa says that, when she says this, when she says that. And it changes, and then by the end, they're interacting differently because they've grown as a family, and the world and they have changed, and then the way they interact at the end of the movie, like... I think it's between the mom and the girlfriend. Just the way they talk to each other, it changes.
Yeah.
It's not that she necessarily... I mean, she did learn a lesson, but it's not like she was doing something wrong and got better. It's like it was an adjustment of a microaggression, basically, and it's just one of those little things, and it makes a difference, and it's really sweet.
Yeah. All right. What is the last thing we're gonna elevate?
Close this out. I've got Knives Out. Knives Out is the first Knives Out is... The second one is good. I think the first one is likely to be my favorite. It's a lot more... I think the original Knives Out is going to be a lot more timeless than the second one. Just fine. There's certain movies that are made of a time, certain movies that aren't. Like, there's nothing wrong with either one. Just has longer shelf life, and that's fine. So the first Knives Out very much plays with the... whodunit, mystery novel, mystery movie of, like, the 60s through the 80s style, like Death on the River Nile, or, Death on the Midnight Express, Death on the Nile, stuff like that. But it's done from this place of fandom, and the way he plays with the form compared to other, of using the form against the viewer's expectation and while still following with it. The way he... pays homage to other movies of the genre, the way he plays with his dialogue. Early in the beginning of the movie, there is this line that is a throwaway line, but also has utility, which is, I think he's talking about his grandson. I don't think he'd know the difference between a prop knife and a real one. And it's a great line that in and of itself holds up on its own. It's a great... It's something that you understand what the character's talking about, and is, apt. It's a very good, just, like, line for the character to say. Yeah. However, it also comes up later. And it's little things like that that just, create these through lines of like, it's a line, I think, and something we've talked about before, where you create a line, where you create a shot, where you create a story beat that has, it stands on its own and can be used later. I think that is the genius of these moments. And I think, we've talked about it before, like the video formatting thing with Grand Budapest Hotel. It's kind of cool. It stands on its own. If it doesn't mean anything, it's quirky. But since it means something, it's really cool. The callback jokes. The jokes hold up on their own and are not like Chekhov's gun where they need to be utilized later. They hold up on their own. They're fine. And then when you use them later, it just you just square the juiciness of it,
Yeah.
It doesn't become like twice as good. It becomes, joke over, joke squared, basically. So, the teasing for the setup and Brotherhood, it's like, does the thing hold up on its own? Yeah. Does it make it even better when, you do the callback?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Greater than the sum of its parts. The ending bloopers are one of those things that are like don't quite hold into this one, but it's still like you're appreciating your viewers and you're making them feel validated.
Yeah.
The callbacks on screen, all these little things are greater than the sum of their parts. They are very much, they get, I'm trying to think of a mathematical term and none's coming to mind. But yeah, I don't know. It's so dope to see any of these films and like where people decide to make value. But most importantly is when you make value that's not in and of itself the value, which I think is like the big thing. When you're doing set up punchline effectively with your story beats, there's nothing bad about it. It becomes very formulaic, and then people have this expectation. But when you have this thing that stands on its own, that has value by itself, and then has value when called back to, I think is like, I'm noticing through this list that we've made that like that is like one of my big takeaways from this is to have your moments be of themselves, but be great also when brought back to.
Yeah. All right, I think with that, we're going to take a little ad break.
Buy this product.
Buy it now. Don't you just hate being a weird social outcast? Don't you wish that you were suave, had women or men falling all over you for no particular reason other than you're present? Do you wish that you had superpowers? Or were simply OP-AF, just for existing? Well, that kind of wish for social status and ability could be fulfilled with Isekai, the most power trip trope anime nerds have clamored to in recent years. Chock full of self-insert protagonists, you can numb your mind and avoid thinking about responsibilities or your crippling social anxiety while you ponder life's greatest question to date. Wouldn't it all just be better if I was reborn somewhere else? Probably not. And welcome back.
Hi.
For the energy, I appreciate it.
Hello!
Better, I guess.
From tomorrow!
What have you got cooking in the old brain oven?
Brain oven.
I don't know what happened there.
Well, open up the brain oven because I've got lasagna. A couple of lasagnas. A lasagna couple, if you will. So
this is the word lasagna one more time. I'm disowning you. So lasagna couple is this weird idea I had where we've all known those like cool couples. Like they've got that energy of like you don't want to like you wouldn't want to necessarily marry one of them. Like, like, oh, that person's hot or cool or awesome. I'd like to be with that person. It's the dynamic between the people that you're, like, fixated on. Yeah.
That just chemistry between, person A and person B.
For sure.
And usually those people are able to do something that a lot of people, the ones that I have run across in my life, they're able to have these dynamics. You're like, that would be so cool, like where they can kind of like play with each other, just like in public, where they're just like, it's somewhere between a romance and a friendship, like in all of its like best forms, where they still have that playfulness that that they can just like mess around with each other, but also still love each other wholeheartedly. It's so beautiful and so pure. It's also very annoying when you don't have a relationship like that. You're like, fuck you. And there's like a little bit of jealousy creeping in the back of your brain. So what if
bitterness? All right.
yeah, and from that bitterness comes this tale. So Lasagna couple follows one of those cool couples, and they make a bet. They're like, I love this so much, I could have this every day.
Okay.
And the person's like, oh yeah? Well, I'll bet I love it more and I could have it every day. Oh yeah? Well, let's do it then. And so they make this bet that the first person to cave has to do, and it's got to be something tawdry, like they've got to clean the bathroom for a week, or it's something irrelevant.
Sure.
So the whole entire movie, they just keep one-upping the stakes. Not one-upping the stakes, but they keep doing it, and they realize after a certain while, I fucking hate this. This is so fucking stupid. I can't believe we're doing this. But they can't admit it because they're both
You're in too deep.
competitive. Yeah, they're both competitive. They're both too deep. And so it gets into this weird, like, almost demolition of their awesome relationship over this silly bet that at the end, I don't know how I want to end it. One of them caves. I don't think they get divorced because that would be really sad. But like something happens. I don't know if this has enough integrity or like, kind of room to become a feature film or if it's just a short. But just the idea of playing with this, like that cool couple dynamic and watching all their friends go from like, man, I wish I had that relationship to they're like happy with their own because like they're watching theirs implode over having lasagna every night or something like that. It's just a fun idea to my brain and something I want to play with at some point. So that's what I've got cooking in the old cabeza. What about you?
So I've been thinking about what would happen if you didn't sleep. Like,
Death.
thank you. Yes, supposedly 10 days no sleep, your body just shits the bed.
Is it really? That's all? Huh.
It's not as long as you might think, but yeah, supposedly, like, I don't know if this has ever really been tested, but like that is supposedly enough days without sleep, your body just quits permanently. However, you have to like really work to do that.
It's like an overworked employee. Just like, I need you to work on like day 11. Like, I need to work again. I quit. Just like leave.
Pretty much. Like your body just goes on strike, and in this case, your nervous system just goes dunzo. That's why people do like you can die of exhaustion and stuff. But like usually most people that die of exhaustion, it's chronic exhaustion, and it's like over months, not like a short stint. Like,
Okay.
it's just wildly off topic. Anyway, but my thought was more like a social aspect. Like, if you didn't sleep, like, so Joe Blow gets the power where he just doesn't need sleep anymore. He has no desire for it, no interest in it. He is just awake 24/7.
He just epitomizes that sleep. He'll sleep when he's dead.
Yeah, and like not to the detriment of himself in like a physical capacity. Like he's never tired. He doesn't need, he's not like strung out on an endless supply of coffee, for example. He's not doing the caffeine patch a la Meet the Robinsons. He just doesn't need sleep anymore. And for a few days, it's outstanding. Because he can get so much shit done. He can just, do whatever he wants at night when people are asleep. But the problem is that he just ends up intensely alone 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And, like, even if he's got a partner, they go to bed and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And so he just gets to sit there and stew and think about the day and, try to be distracted. And some days it's easy. But, like, on bad days, he can't just go to bed and stop thinking about what went wrong that day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and just a look at how much turning off your brain and just kind of factory resetting yourself is so important. And so good. Like, as much as I don't like sleeping, because I just want to do more shit,
Mm-hmm.
play more games, read more books, watch more shows, whatever. Like, not even
Mm-hmm.
like super productive shit. I just want to do more stuff. Like, there is so much intrinsic value that we don't appreciate about sleeping.
Totally. I think this especially works better if you set this in a time period where there's no internet. Because with the internet, it kind of undoes the ability to, like, while I'm
I don't
bored, there's
even
nobody
think
to
it
talk to.
does.
No?
No, like I mean, because it's one of those things where social social repercussions still happen. Just because we have fancier, shinier distractions doesn't mean our brain will quit. Like,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, listen, how many days have we just gravitated and fixated on something that is not good for us? Even with all the shiny bell baubles and distractions that are at our fucking fingertips.
Sure.
It's not like we don't fucking do that still.
Touche.
Alright. Before we sign off, what do you got to recommend for the people this week?
I have been really, well, I say been, before I moved, I watched the show called Hacks on HBO. It's about this young new comedy writer and this old stand-up comedian, and hilarity ensues. But in all reality, it shows a really good intersection between two very different characters coming from very different time periods who share the common bond of enjoying making jokes and also being, and then have to deal with being damaged people. Um, and it does a really good job of showing that people change and they don't. That change is gradual, that people, will revert back to themselves in moments of strife, that just because you get good at this doesn't mean you fix that. It's got a really good character dissection when it comes to growth from people that are damaged and how it's not okay, but at the same time it's understandable, which I think is really big, especially in this time that we're all living in, because it's so much of, not to get too political or too twittery, but there's so much like, oh, look at what this person said 15 years ago, and not taking into account how they've changed and who they were back then, and how just because somebody made a bad tweet doesn't make them a bad person. There's so many little things like that people are being judged like it's the fucking, like back in the Bible day before Jesus, where literally you had to be pure your whole entire life to gain access to heaven. You could not have fault.
Yeah.
It's like, for those of you that aren't aware, that's the reason Jesus died for your sins, is because according to the way the Bible is written, not saying this as if it's necessarily true, but the way the Bible is written is that if before Jesus, if you had any sin in your heart,
and you did not atone for it with, like, sacrifices.
yeah, lots of sacrifices,
A lot of dead goats and doves.
yeah, no heaven for you. When Jesus dies, that becomes not a thing. He dies for the sins of those then and in perpetuity.
Yeah. That's the idea.
That's the theory.
That is the allegory of perpetual forgiveness and unapologetic, unconditional love. Right.
But the way people are being judged, especially in like social media, which is and isn't a real place, depending upon how you want to look at it, and just mostly in society, is that you have to be pure as white laden snow. If there's anything bad on you, fuck you forever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. I think that's like very dangerous. So I really appreciate a show that looks at, and it doesn't glamorize, but it doesn't vilify those who have made mistakes in their life, those who made decisions. And it does a really good job at kind of comparing and contrasting old school funny, old school way of thinking about things, and like the new premise of like Gen Z and beyond when it comes to the interpretation of the old, and kind of like how they're both right and wrong in different directions. It doesn't like the young kid isn't always right and the old woman isn't always right. There's a lot of good ping pong back and forth where I think they're fair to both generations.
Yeah.
Because it is definitely boomer zoomer kind of intersection there, which I think is...
It is too much us and them, not what value do they each have.
Yeah. And I think this one does a really good job at showcasing both flaws and benefits of both generations in a fairly organic way, and one that I don't know. It's really dope. I would recommend it. What about you? What you got to rec?
Bit of, I've not nearly something so serious. It's a show that was based on a comic called Hilda. Very cute, very very childish. It's very simple, but it's a very good feel good show. Like there's no high stakes, super high octane, crazy tense. It's just it's like curling up in a warm blanket. It's very
Oh.
cute. It's adorable. It's pretty funny. It's a very good feel good show. Like if you were ever sick and you need to eat some chicken soup, just watch this show. It's wonderful. It's the vibe is just delightful. Like it's a cutesy kind of Saturday morning cartoon about the strange adventures of a girl with a, like 99% sure is a Scottish accent in this kind of bizarre, quaint, like what starts as kind of a quaint cabin and then this bizarre little city in what feels like it should be Denmark, um, where trolls are a thing and there's just kind of sort of like weird supernatural stuff sort of living side by side with you. And she has the most adorable dog ever. Or fox deer. It's not actually a dog. It's fucking Twig is cute as hell. Like, I don't know, it's
Can't
adorable.
confirm.
Like,
Yeah.
and it does a very good job at kind of subtle inclusion and not just being in your face about it. Like, which is, it does have, speaking of details, like, it's not just super repeat white background, it's not just, and it's not in your face about it, it just has it nice and subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're into that kind of very, very relaxed, low stakes vibe, if you want something to just chill out to and giggle at and smile at, this show is for you.
On the other hand, if you want to get pumped, I would recommend checking out the song Legend by the artist Tevez. I have been recently, with my new move, I've been walking. I have to, because Los Angeles, I do not have a parking spot at my current unit, or even particularly close. I have to walk
Really?
20 minutes to my car every day to then drive half an hour to 40 minutes to work. Huzzah! Los Angeles. And in doing so, I usually get up a little groggy, and I'm kind of always late. And this song has been ever on my playlist and in my ears this last week when I've been like race walking to work. If I start going back to the gym, although I don't know when I'd find time to do that, this would probably be what I'd be doing the last rep to, because holy fucking shit. You get jacked to the tits! Like it is, oh boy. You start the word sigma starts to enter your brain. As much as I fucking hate that word.
You don't like the Sigma grind set?
I hate the word grind set more than I hate the word sigma, but they're both just cancer. Oh Lord, I'm dying just hearing it. You got a tasty ear biscuit for the fans out there?
A song I forgot existed that has come back in a big way into my brain.
Ooh.
Take a Bow by Muse.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, problem is I work in an office, and the couple times I've been listening to it, I violently lip sync to it. Like, it's, yeah, I get way too into it. Song bangs, still. Old Muse went fucking hard in the paint. I haven't listened to much of their new stuff, to be fair. It's still pretty good, but
It's, yeah.
still
All
it's still
time
Muse.
goated.
Still Muse, still good. Yeah, but I totally forgot about that song, and it just came up, and I was like, do I know that? And I listened, like, yeah, where will you be when the drugs kick in?
Well, I do believe that's our episode. So, thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed, please feel free to
Like,
comment,
share.
subscribe.
Don't forget the new episodes of Super Bros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month.
Got him.
Bye.
Bye. Worth it.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.